but it is a gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. Do you believe that? Do you believe you have been saved by the grace of God, not by the things you've done?
Yes.
Absolutely. You all heard that old joke, right? Guy went to heaven, he's there at the pearly gates, and Peter says, here's how it works. You need 100 points to get in. You got to tell me all the things you've done. We're going to add up the points and see how it goes. You get to 100 points and you get in. Man says, all right, I stayed married to the same woman for 50 years. St. Peter said, what? 50 years? That's worth 3 points. 3 points. 3 points for 50 years with the same woman? Well, I attended church all my life too, and I gave my money and my service, and I did all the things they asked me to do. And St. Peter said, wow, you are a rare man. You're terrific. You're wonderful. That's worth another point. 1 point? Well, what about this? I started a soup kitchen, and I worked in a shelter for homeless veterans. Well, that is fantastic. You know what? That's 2 points. The thing you all know. The man was exasperated. He said, you know what? The only way I'm ever going to get in here is by the grace of God. St. Peter said, that's worth 100 points all by itself. We have this idea, though, in our mind that if I'm good enough, if I do enough good things, if I'm a good person, or even worse, we have this idea, if I just avoid the bad things. I know so many people who have lived lives, their entire lives thinking, if I just avoid the bad things, they'll go to church and they'll do their things, their good things, but mostly they sit at home and try to avoid all the bad things. Well, I ain't going to watch that TV show, and I'm not going to go to that movie, and I won't be seen in those places, thinking that I'm going to avoid the bad things, which is good, but I think that's going to earn them points toward heaven. And we've all been brought up thinking, well, you have to be good, rather than thinking the way God sees it. You know what? You don't be good so that I'll love you. And you don't be good so that I'll save you. Those are all results of who you are. Even the scriptures say, you know, all the good works and things, that's why we were saved. Those are results of who we are. They don't make us who we are. When it comes to God, folks, being good is not good enough. We put a lot of stock in ourselves. Don't you think God should get the credit? You know, we look at people and we look at people who are down and out. We look at people who have done horrible things and we say, oh, but for the grace of God, go I. There, but for the grace of God, go I. Oh, I could be in that same situation, except for the grace of God. But then we turn around and we say things like, well, you have to do this if you're going to be a Christian. And you have to go to these places. You have to do this. You have to avoid this. You have to give this. You have to be this. And I'm forced to think, well, where'd the grace of God go? You're telling me I have to earn these things? When you, first of all, first thing you told me was it was the grace of God. Well, which is it? Do I earn it? Or is it by God's grace? This is a legalism problem that has come into the church and it's been here forever. And if we get rid of that idea and we start focusing on the grace of God, and here I'm going to use a word that I hate, but we'll become a lot more tolerant of other people. I'm an intolerant person. I am intolerant of stupidity. I'm intolerant of ignorance, except my own, of course, when I say that. I'm intolerant when I'm watching TV or listening on the radio and I hear people say things that are just bad logic, and I'm very intolerant, and I'm like, well, I think we all get that way, and we write people off and say, well, they are lost for good, and they can never, God will never, shine a light of day on them. We see Christians, and we see a Christian. Have you ever seen a Christian do something and you thought, oh, I really thought they were a Christian, but I saw them smoking a cigarette. I really thought they were a Christian, but you know what? I went out to a restaurant and there they were, having a glass of wine. And y'all might think that's funny, but you know what? A lot of us think that way. Think, oh, well, the Christians, they can't do those things. They can't, and we make these laws, which the Bible had way back in the Old Testament, but Jesus said, that's I'm wiping those out and I'm covering them with my grace. Not to say that you should go out and have a glass of wine with your lunch, and not to say you should go out and take up smoking. Not saying that at all. Although in Kentucky that'd probably be okay, right? Not saying that. But I'm saying we have to get this out of our mind that it's the good stuff that you do and it's the good stuff that make you worthy of God. And God says, nope, none of that happened. Because it's by the grace of God that you're saved. Through faith. Not from yourselves. It's a gift. Folks, nobody is perfect. No Christian is perfect. And until we start depending on the grace of God and seeing people with the grace of God and knowing people through the grace of God, we're never going to see things clearly. And we're never going to be satisfied. And we're never going to find real happiness because we're going to be annoyed by everyone. That leads into the next part. Not only must you focus on grace instead of goodness, but you focus on God's work, not our worth. 2 Corinthians 5:21, God made Jesus, who had no sin, to be sin for us, so that in Jesus we might become the righteousness of God. If you never realize how you are supposed to be viewed, you are supposed to be the righteousness of God, not for anything you've ever done, but simply because of what Jesus did. You ever listen to, you guys know who G. Gordon Liddy is? Okay, most of you. One of the guys involved in the Watergate thing years ago. But G. Gordon Liddy had a radio show, and he's written books and done all the things. One of the things that G. Gordon Liddy said is, I have found within myself all I need, and all I ever shall need. I am a man of great faith, but my faith is in G. Gordon Liddy, and I have never failed me. And we think, well, that's ridiculous. How conceited, but we live that way. So many of us. We don't like to say it, but we're pretty sold on ourselves. We're pretty sold on the fact that we are pretty good, and we are pretty well off, and we are doing just fine without God interrupting us. And we value ourselves really more than we do God. I want to ask you, if you look at your life, what is your life worth? What have you done? What have you done to add up in your life that makes you worth something? Can you go through there and say, oh, the good things that I've done, the sacrifices I've made, I've been a good mother or father, or I've been a good child, I've been a good parent, I've been a good whatever? What's your life worth? And you say, well, I don't know. But we think pretty much of ourselves most of the time. Y'all know who Rick Warren is, right? Most of you know Rick Warren. If you haven't heard of him, you've heard about him. Rick Warren, pastor of Saddleback Church in California. You know, he began the church in their home, 1980. Like I said, it's literally in their house. The church now, almost 30 years later, runs from 16 to 20,000, maybe a little more than that even now, on every weekend. One of the fastest growing churches in all of history.